Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a las obras del domingo.
Hola, amigo.
Hola.
I think you got to start out speaking Spanish on this thing. Is that a?
You know, it's about tradition. You
Yeah, I know.
It's about,
Well, I'm untraditionally in this chair because Jason was not able to be here today, and he asked me would I like to do that, and of course I would because I love sitting here with you. And like I said, this is my favorite. This is my favorite time of the week for ANC. So it's a pleasure and honor to be here.
you know, I really love that space. I know so many people taking advantage of this space, but you know, I think it's a huge opportunity for the church to have the chance to talk about the sermon the last Sunday
Exactly.
and have the chance to interact. And all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had a group at my house last night. That's exactly what we did, was kind of rehash and talk about the things that maybe were new to us, maybe a new concept to us,
Right.
and this has been challenging for some people. For some people, it's been liberating and freeing. Other people, it's been like my wife. She's challenged by this aspect of kind of letting go of a literal.
Right.
A literal 6-day I wouldn't say the creation story, but her struggle is about, well, if that thread we're going to pull on,
Yeah.
where and we've had this asked 2 or 3 times in our question and answer time on Sunday, is if you pull that thread, does the whole thing kind of come unraveled? Where does it stop? What's the next thread you pull? And so
That's a good question.
yeah, we want to open this up again to questions or comments that you guys have from Sunday, maybe resonate with you. And I mentioned this, I told Caesar, we ask if you ask questions online that you give us some context, because we may not revisit it for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. We're not going to be long today. But when we go back to see what the question was, if there's no context to it, and go, hey, that was something I thought of. What was? Tell us what it is that you either agree with, disagree with, or whatever, and we'll try to hit that.
Right. It's very interesting what you said about pulling threads,
Yeah.
because sometimes we are living in a society that we value most the things that are historically accurate
Certainly.
more than the symbolic, the metaphoric, because we think, okay, this is just symbolic, this is just metaphoric, so it's not like, it's kind of less true,
Or less important.
less
Right.
important.
Right.
What I'm totally disagree, because when we talk about the communion, for example, when we talk about the blood of Jesus,
Right.
nobody thinks about drinking plasma,
Right.
real blood.
Right.
It's symbolic. but
What's
it's
the
totally real?
what's the Catholic theology though? Somebody could probably tell us what it is.
Yeah.
Where they believe that it is actually the body and actually the blood. If once in, there's something, there's some
Right.
interaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they call it a miracle.
Right.
I mean, you're eating and drinking literally the
The
blood
blood.
and the flesh.
Right.
It tastes like bread.
It is.
It tastes
Welch's
like
grape juice.
wine, but yeah, grape juice.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, it's a dogma, faith dogma.
Okay. Transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. But I can't pronounce that word.
Okay, you weren't gonna bring it up.
in English.
You were going to let me struggle with it.
Transubstantiación.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
I'm good with that.
Spanish.
Yeah. So
Let's talk about Jason. Jason's
he's not here. He can't do anything about it. Is he online with us? Oh, he is. Dang it.
He's there.
Dang it. All right. We can't talk about him. I thought he had important stuff to go do. Why is he online with us?
He's just making excuses to don't be here.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about David. Any questions related to the sermon this week, or the situation of David and Goliath? I never had even considered. I've actually since then looked up with there's another shooter in this case. There's a guy on the grassy knoll that I was not aware of. But it was attributed to David because that's what the people wanted. They wanted a king, they wanted a ruler, they wanted a strong warrior,
A hero.
and so they attributed the killing of Goliath to David, and it may not necessarily have been, in fact, him. It might have been the guy on the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
So, What are those? What are the things about? What are the things of David that we know to be true? Those are the questions that we ask in here. That he was considered a man after God's own heart.
Yeah, which is a very high statement.
It is a high statement, especially considering the
His
facts
life.
the facts that we know about him.
Yeah, right.
We also know he was a psalmist. He wrote some pretty vulnerable and interesting psalms. When, like Jason said yesterday, or Sunday, when David was up, he wrote the most beautiful connected with God songs that have ever been written. And then when he was experiencing his lows and whatever, that he also experienced, he also wrote some pretty sad, dark psalms.
Yeah.
We know that about him. We know about his relationship with Bathsheba.
Yeah.
We know he took advantage of a situation of being king and not going off to war where the kings were supposed to be, so that he could look down on Bathsheba and then take her.
Yeah.
Physically.
Yeah, sometimes people think that was some kind of romantic situation. I don't think so.
No.
It was. I think it's a very violent
It was
situation.
a territorial situation.
Yeah.
And I don't believe, well, whatever. What else do we know about David?
He was a good king. He tried to.
He was a good king. He let, Jason brought this up as well. He led a team an army of 600 men, which isn't huge by any standards, even of the day. I mean, but it wouldn't be a good army against the Assyrians, but it might have been against the lesser towns in his area. So was he the greatest warrior? Was he the greatest leader? Was he the greatest whatever? I don't know.
One of the stories that impacts me the most is when Saul tried to he was jealous about David,
right?
And he was to give him his daughter, and he said, okay, in order to make putting David in danger, he said, bring me 100 prepucios. They say that, foreskins.
Oh, right.
100.
That's your favorite story?
Yeah, it's funny.
Okay, all right.
Because David brought 200.
Right.
It's like
he goes over and above,
so
I
weird.
guess.
That story is so weird.
Okay. I read a little bit of Pete Enns this morning and talking about going back to the Goliath story. They said it depends on which language you read it in as to how tall the giant was. He was either 10 foot tall, I can't remember which ones it was, but he was either 10 foot tall in the Hebrew, or he was 6'5" and whatever. And they said 6'5" still substantial.
Especially for the time.
For the time.
Yeah.
So he was still a giant, but maybe he wasn't 10 feet tall after all.
Yeah. It was so big.
So I think, especially thinking back to my conversation and looking forward to my conversation with the rabbi on the 14th, have we done or do we do disservice to the text when we read it literally? That's the thing I want to talk to him a little bit about on that Sunday.
It will be something like a conversation.
It'll be a conversation.
Oh, that's
We're going to
great.
be, we'll be up here together, and in the tradition of the Jewish people, we're going to midrash, which is a discussion back and forth, and he can land someplace and I can land another, and we're still going to be cordial friends. And it's okay. It's okay. Which is kind of a departure from those that we...
Judaism, they are very good keeping that tradition. We Christians used to have that in the first century, but after all the Jewish people died and we have just non-Jewish people, we moved towards dogma. Okay,
More-
this is
after
thing, and that's all.
about the 3rd or 4th century, we just became really dug in
Yeah.
to what was and what was not, what was in, what was out. But I think there's a way, and you mentioned this a minute ago, about something being true without necessarily being factual.
Right.
We can come to these stories and believe that the story of David is true without all the facts actually, was Goliath 10 feet? Was he 6'5"?
Yeah.
Does it matter? And that's the thing I was left with the rabbi.
The thing that you just said something also about he was a man according to, how do you say it in English?
After God's own heart?
Yeah, that thing.
Right.
Yeah, which is very interesting because you could find that expression, exactly the same expression, 2 times in the Bible.
Okay.
One time referring to Samuel,
Okay.
because he was a kid, and God said this word to the previous high priest. He said, "You're doing a really bad job. Your sons are awful. So I will remove you and all your dynasty, and I will put a man according to my heart."
Yeah.
And he said that about Samuel. And then, in order to replace Saul, he said the same to David. So
Right.
it's interesting that both expressions occur when God was trying to remove someone
Right.
and put another one.
Right.
So, which is, according to the story, yeah, it was a good decision. David was probably better than Saul,
Right.
but it's not like he was godly
Right.
every
Right.
single day of his life.
Right,
Yes.
but we got to think about who wrote these accounts and what attributes or traits do you want your leader and king to have?
Right.
What is worthy? Why did they put that phrase in there? Was he actually a man after God's own heart, or is that something that every leader or king should aspire to be? And so we're going to place that moniker upon him. He'll be known as that because that's what we want him to be.
Right. Well, we write history in the same way.
Right. I mean, hey, okay, I'm gonna get a little bit political and a little bit current events, but I heard the same things in the 2016 and 2020 elections. This is God's man. This is God's anointed. You know, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? What do we got? Who's chiming in? What?
I just forget something.
Okay.
But it will come eventually. Look, you can.
Giant or tall is symbolic for strength or pride. Yeah, absolutely. I agree
Yeah.
with that. For instance, when people find security in the physical strength of weapons, horses, etc.
Yeah, right.
Numbers of horses, numbers of chariots.
You know, I have a theory about why David looks so great in the text and Saul looks so dumb in the text.
Okay.
The Bible was written by the Jews.
Okay.
At a certain point that they were not Jews yet, they were Judahites,
Okay.
people from the tribe of Judah.
Right.
Which is interesting is that Saul is from the north,
Making him.
making him from the 10 tribes from the north
Okay.
instead of Judah.
Right.
So it's very convenient for the writers to put the previous guy, which is from the north, the tribes that were already spread out of
Right.
and
And casting dispersions on him.
yeah, but the throne from David is eternal.
Right.
Because they are tracing from David, Solomon, all the
All the way to
kings.
Jesus.
Sure.
That's another one of those
that's interesting.
thing. Yeah.
So maybe Saul it wasn't so bad.
Right.
Maybe Manasseh, it wasn't so bad a king. It looks really bad in the Bible,
Right.
but probably it wasn't so bad.
Depends on who's writing.
But Judahites were always better in the text.
Well, yeah.
Because-
Because they wrote the story.
Yeah, they won
They won. The winners write the stories.
all the time.
Yep.
So we have your wife already
Oh,
there.
is my wife in there?
Enjoying that we are indoors.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that. Sorry, radio, you don't get any business from us today because it's too dang hot for me. I just don't do. I'll melt out there. I don't know how Jason does it every week.
And Jason have a very thoughtful commentary here. He said,
Yep.
"Yep,
Thanks, Jason.
thanks,
Good.
thank you."
Appreciate that. He didn't hear my context on or my advice on putting context with your comments.
Just yep.
Yep. All right. Who? Anybody else? We good.
Well, we're very good. Very good with the comments.
All right.
So
What else we got? Like I said, one of the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, obviously this week, Jason's going to be teaching on Jonah and a big fish.
Big whale, fish, whatever.
Yeah, and unraveling, pulling a thread on that and just seeing what happens. Do we have to be scared of that? Do we have to be scared of all the threads that get pulled? Or is that something, a new space that we're getting comfortable with?
I think it's right if someone is scared at this point.
Right.
I think it's because I would like to be honest. Every time that I push the text a little bit or pull threads using the same metaphor, I scare a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you learn something and you keep that, you know, that teaching inside of your heart and your brain for so many years,
Right.
it became part of you.
Sure.
So eventually when you need to, it wasn't like that,
Right.
you feel pain,
Right.
actual pain,
Right.
you know? I know that in Mexico, a girl, 15 years old,
Okay.
she came to my wife and she said, what do you think about, no, her mother, daughter, my wife.
Okay.
And the mother said, what do you think about, how do you manage the story of Santa Claus with your kids? And she said, well, my kids already know, they never believe in Santa Claus, and you know, that's fine, that's okay, because they know that we make the effort to buy this and that, but it's nice, we use the image
Sure.
for decorational purposes and
Right.
stuff like that. The girl that was beside the mother was 15 years old,
She
and
didn't
she
know?
still believed in Santa.
Well, don't you?
Well, I don't know. Well, she was, after a while, I mean, she moved to a different place and she started to cry.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
that hard.
Well, Jason did that a
That
few years
hard.
ago to us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where?
In service.
Oh, my
Jason did that. Kids are in the room. I'm assuming kids aren't watching now, but Jason pretty much just.
So, and my wife apologized. She said, I didn't expect that.
Right. From a
She was
15-year-old.
15-year-old,
Right.
15-year-old. Yeah. Otherwise, I would be more careful and stuff,
Right.
but 15 years old. Okay, anyways, so it causes hurt. After a week, he realized, yeah, this makes sense.
Right.
This makes sense. But the pain was real.
Sure.
So I think it's the same with the Bible, and we start to pull those threads. When we start to see that symbolic meaning probably is way deeper than literal meaning, and put that idea away.
Yeah. Can something be truthful and not be factual?
That, right.
That's the.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, is Santa Claus factual? Absolutely not.
Yeah, if I say to you, Trey, I love you with all my heart,
Right.
I'm saying that my love comes from this muscle
Right.
that pumps blood through all of my.
Right.
No.
No.
It's an expression,
Sure.
but you know that
Right.
I'm talking about feelings, and those are real.
They are real. Speaking of, we could go to Jonathan and David as a segue from that. I read this morning. And because I told Jason, I'm like, bro, this was your leftovers. I'm just grasping at straws here. I read this morning that with Jonathan and David, it was love at first sight. That there was an immediate,
Connection.
deeper than a love between a man and woman. It says,
yeah.
in the-
Actually, when David was mourning about Jonathan's death, he said that your love was sweeter than the love of the women,
right.
which is a strange.
It's
I mean, it's not a problem for me if
Sure.
David was bisexual or homosexual, gay, whatever.
Right.
I mean, for me, it's not a problem. For a lot of people, it's a huge like,
Oh yeah.
what?
Oh yeah. We spent a lot of time in my Southern Baptist church explaining that verse away.
You know, one of my best friends, especially, for sure, my best friend here in the States is Jason.
Yeah.
I would never said to him, your love is better than the love of my wife.
Right? Right?
Never in my life.
Oh, that's coming. It's coming. No, that's true. That's true.
I mean, at least I have a different, orientation.
There's a different category for that.
Yeah, it's
for us
Yeah, it's
as
different.
as straight men,
Yeah. But there's those notes in the Bible, and sometimes we want to just, this is an expression that I learned from here in the States, sugarcoat it,
Right.
all of this
Right.
hard things.
That's why,
But
yeah.
maybe something there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Interesting.
We got any
Well,
comments on Jonathan? Anybody thoughts on Jonathan?
Jason was encouraging us.
Please go to Jonathan and
Jonathan
David.
and David.
We did that. All right.
You
I
should
don't-
did that.
Yeah. He didn't want to go there. Somebody mentioned it, and anyway,
It was interesting.
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Interesting. And I love when we try to humanize a little bit more the text. I love it because it's sometimes we put the holiness of the text or the people of the text so far away
Right.
that it looks almost like impossible for us
Yeah.
to achieve that. And the good thing is, beside David was probably, it wasn't the greatest man in history. It was a humble man that every time that he failed,
Right.
he was able to say, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and start again.
Yeah.
And maybe we need some of that too.
I'll take some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm good with that explanation on David and Jonathan and their love for each other. And if it, like you said, if it was bisexual in nature, it was, because we definitely know David loved women, or maybe he didn't. I don't know. Maybe he was an abuser of women, which is what the story of Bathsheba kind of shows,
Right.
that he abused his power for sure. But anyway,
Interesting.
a man after God's own heart, though.
So many things that.
A lot of questions, a lot of strings
And
to.
I hope this encourages you to have your own conversations at your table, at your house, with your friends.
Yep.
Because this is faith must be. We need to talk about.
Yeah,
faith.
that's the most beautiful thing, in my opinion, about this series and the way that Jason leads us in this space, is the conversations that it spurs. And in my recollection, no series has caused my wife and I to talk more about what was taught, and our own feelings and our own thoughts about biblical literalism, and kind of where we've been in that journey.
Right.
So it's great for discussions. What did Mary say?
Mary's here.
Mary popped in. She's always got something. Saul and David, Michael, and well, that's funny. We said Michael. We told Michael to the rabbi, and he didn't know who we were talking about because Mikal. It's a different Hebrew pronunciation.
Yeah,
and
Mikal.
Yeah, messy family system. Absolutely. Whose family isn't a mess? To be honest with you.
I'm tired when people say this is the family according to the Bible.
Biblical family
Family
values.
values. And
Right.
they say, are you reading the Bible lately?
Right.
Or maybe, what kind of Bible are you reading?
Right. Yeah.
Because there's no such a example of family.
No, we talk about, we don't talk about, but other structures, focus on the family, biblical definition of marriage. Well, we start going to that, and we can find a whole lot of mess. What the biblical definition of marriage is, you don't have to look very far
Sure.
beyond these stories. So I'm good. Are we good?
Are we good?
Was that a good
That was very good. So,
leftovers?
August 14th,
Yeah, August 7th is this week with Jonah and the fish.
right?
The following week is me and the rabbi going to be up here and have an interfaith dialogue, which just promises to be super
I love it.
entertaining and fun, and don't miss it. If you have the opportunity to be here, and Rabbi Blumoff, if you know Rabbi Neil, come join us in the room. We'd love to have you and love to see you.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.